The stars had never been kind to humanity. Admiral Kung Taezu understood this better than anyone as he stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the darkness of space through the main viewing window. Behind him, officers worked at their stations in silence. The mood was heavy. Everyone knew what was coming. 200 years ago, humanity had discovered they were not alone. The galaxy was full of life. Thousands of civilizations spread across millions of worlds. There were empires older than human history itself. When humans first made contact, they had hoped for friendship. They had hoped for wonder. Instead, they found politics, cruelty, in a universe that did not care about hope. Earth had joined the Galactic Concord as a minor member. They had no choice. The alternative was to be labeled a rogue species and destroyed. For 2 centuries, humanity had tried to grow, to learn, to catch up with civilizations that had traveled between stars for longer than humans had used fire. But 200 years was nothing. To the elder races, humanity was still a child, a weak, primitive child, and now the Valori had come. The message had arrived 3 days ago. The Valori Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, had declared humanity a resource species. Under Galactic Concord law, this was legal. Any species deemed too weak to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization could be claimed. Their people could be taken. Their world could be harvested. Their children could be sold. Admiral Kung had served in the military for 40 years. He had fought pirates and rebels. He had protected colony ships and trade routes, but he had never faced anything like this. The Valori Armada was already in the outer reaches of the Sol system. 8,000 warships. Each one was larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. Earth had 400 ships. Old ships. Slow ships. Ships with weapons that might scratch velo or paint if they were lucky. In the capital city of New Seoul, General Park Dae-ho sat in the war room with the leaders of every nation on Earth. The room was crowded, but no one spoke. What was there to say? They had petitioned the Galactic Council for protection. They had begged. They had offered everything they had. The Council had listened politely, then voted. The motion failed. Humanity was too young, they said. Too insignificant. The Valori had been members of the Concord for 50,000 years. Humans had been members for 200. The math was simple. One ambassador, creature with too many eyes and a voice like breaking glass, had said something that General Park would never forget. Perhaps, the ambassador had said, this is simply natural selection on a galactic scale. General Park had wanted to scream. He had wanted to fight. But what could he do? His soldiers were brave. His pilots were skilled. But bravery and skill meant nothing against an enemy with technology thousands of years more advanced. It would be like throwing stones at starships, but there was one hope. One desperate, impossible hope. Deep beneath the mountains of what was once Korea, Dr. Yoon Hana worked without sleep. The Dimensional Research Institute had been her life's work. For 30 years, she had studied the fabric of reality itself. She had learned how space could bend, how time could fold, how dimensions could overlap. Her theories were considered too strange, too dangerous. The Galactic Concord had banned research into dimensional manipulation centuries ago. They said it was too unstable, too unpredictable. Dr. Yoon did not care about their laws anymore. The Concord had abandoned humanity. Why should humanity follow their rules? The Horizon engine filled a chamber the size of a stadium. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Thousands of cables connected to a central core that glowed with soft blue light. The machine was meant to create a barrier around Earth, a wall between dimensions that no weapon could pass through. At least that was the theory. Dr. Yoon had never been able to test it. There had never been enough power. There had never been enough reason. Now there was both. Admiral Kong received the order at midnight. All ships were to form a defensive line around Earth. They would buy time. How much time? No one knew. Probably not enough. As his fleet moved into position, he opened a channel to his crew. I will not lie to you, he said. We cannot win this battle. The enemy is stronger than us. They have more ships, better weapons, thousands of years of experience. By all logic, we should surrender. We should accept our fate. He paused. On the bridge, every officer watched him. But we are human, Admiral Kong continued. And humans have never been good at accepting fate. Our ancestors survived ice ages with nothing but fire and stone. They crossed oceans in wooden boats. They climbed mountains because the mountains were there. They went to the moon in machines held together with hope and mathematics. We are not a species that gives up. We are not a species that surrenders. So today, we fight. Not because we can win, but because fighting is who we are. The Velori Armada entered weapons range at dawn. 8,000 ships against 400. The first shots were fired. Human ships exploded like fireworks. Admiral Kong watched his fleet die around him. He gave orders that he knew would not matter. He fired weapons that he knew would not hurt the enemy, but he did not run. None of them ran deep beneath the mountains. Dr. Yoon Hana watched the battle on her screens. She saw the death. She saw the destruction. Her hands shook as she entered the final commands. The Horizon engine was ready. She did not know if it would work. She did not know what would happen if it did, but she knew that doing nothing meant extinction. She pressed the button. The universe screamed. For one moment, every star in the galaxy seemed to flicker. Space itself twisted and folded. The Sol system, everything within it, every planet, every moon, every ship, every human being, was pulled out of reality like a thread pulled from cloth. Where Earth had been, there was nothing. Where Mars had been, there was nothing. Where 8,000 Velori warships had been preparing to claim their prize, there was only empty space. The Velori fleet commander stared at his screens in confusion. One moment, he had been watching his weapons tear through human defenses. The next moment, his targets had simply vanished. His sensors showed nothing. His scanners found nothing. The entire Sol system was gone. Back at the Galactic Council, the news spread within hours. Earth had been destroyed, they said. The humans had done something foolish, something desperate, and they had paid for it with their existence. The Velori claimed victory. Other species shrugged. It was sad, they said. The humans had potential, but potential meant nothing in a galaxy that rewarded power. Within a century, humanity was erased from galactic records. Their name was forgotten. Their worlds were listed as empty coordinates. Their history became a footnote, then nothing at all. One ambassador, the same one who had spoken of natural selection, attended a brief memorial service. A pity, he said to no one in particular. They had spirit, but spirit alone does not win wars. He was wrong. He just did not know it yet. Dr. Yoon Hana did not die. None of them died. At least, not from the Horizon engine. When she opened her eyes, she was still in her laboratory. The machines around her were still humming. The lights were still on. For a moment, she thought nothing had happened. Then she looked at her screens and saw something impossible. The stars were gone, not destroyed, not blocked, simply gone. The sky outside Earth was pure darkness. No sun, no moon, no distant galaxies. Just endless, empty black. And yet somehow, there was light. A soft glow came from everywhere and nowhere. The temperature remained stable. The air remained breathable. Physics, it seemed, still worked. But everything else had changed. It took humanity 3 months to understand what had happened. The Horizon engine had not created a barrier. It had done something far stranger. The entire Sol system had been pulled out of normal space and into a pocket dimension. A bubble of reality floating in the void between universes. They were not destroyed. They were displaced. The first year was chaos. With no sun, Earth's surface became cold and dark. Crops died. Power systems failed. Billions of people faced starvation. Wars broke out as nations fought over remaining resources. Dr. Yoon Hana was blamed. She was called a murderer, a fool, a monster. She accepted the blame. She had no defense. She had tried to save humanity. Instead, she had trapped them in a prison of her own making. But humans are adaptable creatures. They always have been. By the end of the first decade, engineers had built artificial suns, massive fusion reactors floating in space, providing light and heat to Earth. Farms moved underground and into space stations. New cities rose on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. Death still came. Millions were lost to hunger, cold, and war. But extinction did not come. Humanity survived. By the end of the first century, the wars had stopped. Not because humans had become peaceful, but because they had found a common enemy. Not the Valori. Not any alien race. The enemy was despair. The enemy was hopelessness. The enemy was the voice that whispered in every human ear, telling them to give up, to accept their fate, to die quietly in the darkness. They chose to fight that enemy together, the Terran. Sovereignty was born in the year 347 after the Vanishing. It was not a perfect government. It was built from compromise and necessity, but it was unified. For the first time in human history, every nation, every culture, every people stood under one banner. They had to. Survival demanded it. Dr. Yoon Hannah lived to see the sovereignty formed. She was 112 years old, kept alive by medical technology that improved every year. On the day the charter was signed, she stood before the new parliament and spoke. "I made a mistake," she said. "I tried to save us, and instead I trapped us. I have carried that guilt for 100 years. But today I give you something else. I give you knowledge." She explained what she had discovered. The Horizon engine could be reversed. The Sol system could return to normal space. They could go home, but only when they chose to. Only when they were ready. The Parliament debated for 3 days. Some wanted to return immediately. Some wanted to hide forever. In the end, they voted. The result was almost unanimous. They would return, but not today. Not tomorrow. Not until they were strong enough to make sure no one would ever threaten them again. Supreme. Commander Baek Jin was born 400 years after the Vanishing. She never knew the old Earth. She never saw natural sunlight or natural stars. To her, the artificial suns were normal. The dome cities were normal. The endless darkness beyond the system was simply how the universe looked. She grew up hearing stories of the galaxy outside. Stories of the Valori who had tried to enslave her ancestors. Stories of the Galactic Council who had abandoned them. Stories of a universe that had looked at humanity and seen nothing worth saving. Those stories made her angry. That anger made her strong. That strength made her a soldier. By the time Baek Jin became Supreme Commander, humanity had transformed. The Sol system was no longer a small collection of planets orbiting a single star. It was a machine. Mercury had been hollowed out and turned into a forge world. Its endless factories produced weapons, ships, and technology. Mars held a population of 8 billion. The asteroid belt had been converted into shipyards. Thousands of facilities worked day and night. Building warships, Chief Engineer Cho Woo-jin was the architect of humanity's rebirth. He was a quiet man who spoke rarely and thought constantly. His designs changed everything. He studied every piece of alien technology that humanity had possessed before the Vanishing. He took them apart. He understood them. Then he rebuilt them better. But Woo-jin did not stop there. He asked questions that no alien had ever asked. What if weapons did not just destroy matter, but destroyed the space that matter occupied? What if ships did not travel through normal space but slipped between dimensions? What if armor did not just block attacks, but existed partially outside of reality, untouchable by conventional weapons? The answers to those questions became humanity's arsenal. The Terran military grew. At first, they had 1,000 ships, then 10,000, then 100,000. Training academies covered entire moons. Every human learned to fight. Every child was taught history, science, and warfare. The culture shifted. Humans no longer dreamed of peace with the galaxy. They dreamed of returning to it on their own terms, Chancellor. Seo Yuna led the civilian government during the final centuries of preparation. She was a small woman with a soft voice and eyes like steel. She understood something that many did not. Weapons alone would not be enough. Humanity needed purpose. They needed to remember why they were fighting. Vengeance is not enough, she told her people. If we return only to destroy, we become no better than those who tried to destroy us. We must return to build something new. A galaxy where no species is abandoned. A galaxy where the weak are protected, not harvested. We fight not just for ourselves. We fight for everyone who was ever told they did not matter. Her words were recorded. They were taught to every generation. They became the foundation of what humanity would become. 2,000 years passed, 20 centuries of work, growth, preparation, and waiting. Dr. Yoon Hana died, but her descendants carried her knowledge. Supreme Commander Baek Jin aged and was replaced by new commanders, each carrying the same fire. Chief Engineer Cho Woo-jin's designs were improved by thousands of engineers who came after him. And finally, the day came. Supreme Commander Baek Jin stood before the Horizon engine. The machine had been rebuilt, improved, perfected. Around her, officers monitored systems that would carry them home. Behind her, visible through countless screens, humanity's fleet waited. 500,000 warships. Each one was a masterpiece of technology that the galaxy had never imagined. Each one carried crews who had trained their entire lives for this moment. She opened a channel that reached every human in the system. Every soldier, every civilian, every child. 2,000 years ago, she said, they called us weak. They called us primitive. They said we were not worth saving. They erased our name from their records and forgot we ever existed. She paused. Her voice was steady. Today, we go home. And we go home angry. She gave the order. The Horizon engine activated. Reality twisted, folded, and opened. The Sol system returned to the universe, and the universe was not ready. The patrol ship was called the Velori's Pride, and its captain was bored. He had been assigned to this sector of space for 3 years now. Nothing ever happened here. The coordinates he monitored were empty. They had always been empty. According to official records, nothing of importance had ever existed in this region. His sensors officer made a sound. A small, confused sound. The captain looked up from his console. What is it? Sir, I am detecting an anomaly. Sector 7. The empty coordinates. The captain sighed. Probably just a sensor glitch. Run a diagnostic. Already did, sir. The sensors are working perfectly. There is something there. Something large. Captain walked to the sensor station and looked at the readings. His boredom disappeared. In its place came confusion, then disbelief, and something close to fear, where there had been nothing. There was now everything. A star burned at the center of the readings. Planets orbited it. Moons circled those planets. And everywhere, filling the space between worlds, were ships. Thousands of ships. Tens of thousands. More than the captain had ever seen in one place. That is impossible, he whispered. There is nothing in those coordinates. There has never been anything in those coordinates. His communications officer looked up, her face pale. Sir, I am receiving a transmission. It is broadcasting on all frequencies. Every channel. Every wavelength. The entire galaxy can hear it. The captain nodded slowly. Play it. A voice filled the bridge. It was calm, measured, and utterly confident. This is Ambassador MJ Wan of the Terran Sovereignty. We are the children of Earth. 2,000 years ago, you marked us for extinction. You declared us a resource species. You sent your fleets to enslave our people and harvest our world. We did not die. We have returned, and we have returned to settle that debt. Silence fell on the bridge. The captain stared at his screens. Earth. The word echoed in his memory like something from a dream. He had heard it somewhere, long ago. A footnote in a history class, perhaps. A minor species that had been destroyed before his grandfather was born, but they had not been destroyed. They were here, and their fleet was larger than anything he had ever seen. Sir, his weapons officer said quietly, What do we do? The captain made a decision he would regret for the rest of his very short life. They are just humans, he said. Primitives. Our ancestors crushed them once. Open fire. Show them that nothing has changed. The Valori's pride fired its main cannon. The shot crossed the void toward the nearest human vessel. It was a perfect shot. It would have destroyed any ship in the Valori fleet. The human ship did not move. The shot struck its hull and vanished. Simply disappeared. The ship's armor glowed for a moment, then returned to normal. The vessel was undamaged. Then the human ship fired back. The Valori's pride did not explode. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there. The next moment, the space it occupied was empty. No debris, no radiation, nothing. It was as if the ship had never existed at all. 14 seconds had passed since. Captain gave the order to fire. Across the galaxy, the transmission continued. Ambassador MJ1's voice reached every corner of known space. Species that had never heard of Earth listened in confusion. Species that remembered Earth listened in disbelief. The Valori Empire, which had claimed credit for humanity's destruction, listened in terror. Fleet Admiral No Sora stood on the bridge of the TSS Vengeance, humanity's flagship. She was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen 10,000 simulated battles. Now she would see a real one. She had waited her entire life for this moment. Every human had, Admiral, her tactical officer reported. The Valori patrol ship has been eliminated. No survivors. Sora nodded. She felt no joy, no satisfaction. The patrol ship had been nothing. A single vessel against a fleet of 500,000. The real battle had not yet begun. How long until the Valori respond? Based on their communication speeds, the Valori homeworld will receive word within 2 hours. If they follow standard military protocol, they will dispatch a response fleet within 6 hours. And how large will that fleet be? The tactical officer checked her calculations. Unknown, Admiral. But based on Valori military doctrine, they will not send a small force. They will want to make an example of us. 50,000 ships, minimum. No Sora smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Good. Let them come. In the great hall of the Valori throne world, High Sovereign Threll received the news personally. He was ancient by Valori standards, nearly 4,000 years old. He had ruled his empire for 600 of those years. He had seen wars, rebellions, and the rise and fall of a dozen lesser civilizations. Nothing surprised him anymore until now. Humans, he said, his voice echoing through the hall. Humans have returned. His advisors shifted nervously. Yes, High Sovereign. They appeared exactly where their system vanished 2,000 years ago. But the system has changed. Our scouts report extensive development, artificial structures, massive populations. And their fleet? ... double quotes. What about their fleet? The advisor swallowed. It is larger than ours, High Sovereign. Significantly larger. Threll was silent for a long moment. He remembered the humans. He had been young when his empire had claimed them, a minor species barely worth the effort. Their technology had been laughable. Their military had been pathetic. They had been scheduled for processing within a decade. Then they had vanished. Threll had assumed they had destroyed themselves. Some desperate act of suicide rather than face enslavement. He had thought no more about them, that he now realized had been a mistake. Send the 5th Grand Fleet, he ordered. 50,000 ships. Tell Admiral Vor to destroy them completely. No survivors. No mercy. I want the humans erased from existence properly this time. The fleet launched within hours. 50,000 Velor warships, the largest military force assembled in 3 centuries. Admiral Vor led them personally. He was confident. The humans might have more ships, but ships meant nothing without experience. The Valori had been fighting wars since before humans had discovered fire. The 2 fleets met in the space between systems. Admiral Vor opened communications as protocol demanded. Human fleet, he said, you are outnumbered in experience and outmatched in skill. Your numbers mean nothing. Surrender now, and some of you may be spared. Resist, and you will all die." Fleet Admiral Nosora responded. Her face appeared on Ver's screen. She looked calm, almost bored. "Admiral Vor," she said, "I have studied your tactics. I have analyzed every battle your people have fought for the last 10,000 years. I know how you think. I know how you move. I know what you will do before you do it." She paused. "You asked us to surrender. I will give you the same chance. Retreat now, and your ships will be spared. Stay, and you will learn what 2,000 years of preparation looks like." Vor laughed. He had never been so insulted. "You think you can threaten me? I have commanded fleets larger than your entire species. I have destroyed civilizations older than your history. You are nothing." "No," Sora's expression did not change. "We were nothing," she agreed. 2,000 years ago, we were weak and helpless and alone. But we had something your people never understood. We had time, and we used every second of it." She cut the communication. Vor gave the order to attack. The battle began. Velor's ships opened fire with weapons that had destroyed empires. Their shots crossed the void and struck human vessels. And like before, the shots simply vanished, absorbed, negated. The human ships did not even slow down. Then the human fleet returned fire. The first wave of shots hit the Velori formation. Ships did not explode. They simply ceased to exist. Holes appeared in reality itself, swallowing everything they touched. Vor watched in horror as his flagship's sensors struggled to understand what was happening. "What kind of weapons are those?" he demanded. His science officer shook her head. "Unknown, Admiral. The readings make no sense. They are not destroying our ships. They are removing them from existence, erasing them from space-time itself." The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, 47,000 Velori ships were gone. The human fleet had lost 340 vessels. Admiral Vor was captured alive. He was the only surviving senior officer. Fleet Admiral Nosora stood over him as he knelt in chains on the deck of the Vengeance. "You were right about one thing," she said. "We were nothing. But nothing can become something. And something can become everything." She left him there, staring at the floor, trying to understand how his universe had changed so completely in a single day. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread. The Valaway had lost. Not just lost. They had been annihilated. By humans. By a species that had been erased from history. 2,000 years ago, the galaxy began to remember the name it had forgotten. Earth. Humanity. The Terran. Sovereignty. They were back. And they were not finished. The war spread across the galaxy like fire. After the first battle, the Velori sent more fleets. Larger fleets. They stripped defenses from their borders. They called in every ship they had. It did not matter. Every fleet they sent was destroyed. Grand Marshal Quan Suho commanded humanity's military operations from the TSS Unity, a command ship the size of a small moon. He was 70 years old, with a face like carved stone and a mind like a computer. He had spent his entire life studying war. Now he was fighting one, reportee said. His aide pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed Velori territory. Blue dots showed human positions. Weeks ago, the blue dots had been a single point. Now they spread across space like a growing wave. "We have won 17 major engagements," the aide reported. "Total enemy losses exceed 200,000 ships. Our losses remain under 5,000. The Velori are retreating on all fronts." Quan Suho nodded slowly. The numbers were good, better than expected, but numbers did not tell the whole story. "What about the civilians?" The aide hesitated. "We have liberated 43 worlds so far, populations ranging from thousands to billions. Most are slave species. They have been under Velor control for centuries. And how are they responding? Confused, sir. Afraid. They do not understand who we are or what we want. Many expect us to replace the Velori as their masters. This was the problem Quan Suho had feared. Winning battles was easy. Humanity's technology was too advanced, their preparation too thorough. But winning hearts was harder. The galaxy had never seen a species like them. Every powerful civilization in history had conquered and enslaved. That was simply how the universe worked. The idea that someone might fight without wanting to own what they conquered was alien to everyone except humans, on the planet Vosaven. Lieutenant Bae-Yun Bai experienced this confusion firsthand. She was 24 years old, a ground forces officer in her first real combat deployment. Her unit had been sent to secure Valori, a mining facility where thousands of enslaved workers were held. The fighting had been brief. Valori soldiers were good, but human soldiers were better. Their armor made them nearly invincible. Their weapons never missed. Within an hour, the facility was secure. Then came the hard part. Bai walked through the worker quarters with her squad. The rooms were small and dirty. Hundreds of aliens huddled together, watching the humans with terrified eyes. They were thin, malnourished, covered in scars from years of labor and punishment. They expected death, or worse. "We are not here to hurt you," Yunbai said through her translator. "The Valori are gone. You are free." An older alien, something that looked like a mixture of a bird and a lizard, stepped forward. His voice was weak. "Free? What does that mean? Who do we belong to now?" "You do not belong to anyone. You belong to yourselves." The alien stared at her. He did not understand. The concept of freedom was so foreign to him that the words had no meaning. Bai knelt down so she was at his eye level. "I know you are scared. I know you do not trust us. You have no reason to trust anyone. But I promise you, we did not come here to take anything. We came here because what was done to you was wrong, and we are going to make sure it never happens again." The alien continued to stare. Then, slowly, tears began to fall from his eyes. He did not say anything. He did not need to. Word spread. On every liberated world, the same scene repeated. Humans did not enslave. Humans did not take. They freed prisoners and gave them food. They healed the sick and buried the dead. They asked for nothing in return. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. On the Valori throne world, High Sovereign Threll received reports of each defeat with growing despair. His empire was crumbling. His fleets were gone. His allies were abandoning him. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They were primitives, insects. How did they become this?" His chief scientist, a nervous creature named Ven, tried to explain. "We have analyzed captured human technology, High Sovereign. It is unlike anything we have ever seen. Their weapons do not merely destroy. They manipulate the fundamental structure of reality. Their ships can move between dimensions. Their armor exists partially outside normal space, making it immune to conventional weapons. But how? How did they develop such things?" Ven hesitated. "They had 2,000 years, High Sovereign. 2,000 years of complete isolation. No wars, no politics. No distractions. They focused all their resources, all their intelligence, all their anger on a single goal, returning to this galaxy stronger than anyone who ever lived." He paused, and they succeeded. Threll slammed his fist against his throne. "Then we must negotiate. Offer them whatever they want. Surrender if we must. That may not be an option, High Sovereign. Why not? Because they are not coming for our territory. They are not coming for our resources. They are coming for us. Specifically, they remember what we did to them, and they do not seem interested in forgetting." The war continued. Human fleets pushed deeper into Valori space. System after system fell. Each victory brought more freedom for enslaved species. Each battle brought humanity closer to the Velor. Homeworld, and then something unexpected happened. Other civilizations began to help. It started small. A minor species provided intelligence about Valori's supply routes. Then another offered to shelter human wounded. Then another joined the fighting directly, adding their ships to human formations. Ambassador MJ1 addressed the Galactic Concord. many of whom had abandoned humanity 2,000 years ago. "You ask why we fight," he said. "You think this is about revenge? And yes, there is anger in us. We remember what you did. We remember being abandoned. We remember being told we did not matter." He paused, looking at each ambassador in turn. But revenge is not enough to sustain a war. Revenge burns out. Hatred fades. We fight for something else. We fight because we know what it feels like to be weak. We know what it feels like to beg for help and receive nothing. We know what it feels like to be told your life has no value. His voice hardened, and we refuse to let anyone else feel that way again. The council chamber was silent. You denied us protection when we needed it. You erased us from your records when we vanished. You do not get to call for peace now that we are winning. But you do get a choice. Help us build a better galaxy, or stay out of our way. Either way, the Velori will fall. And when they do, things will change. More species join the coalition. Former Velori subjects, neutral powers who had long feared Velori expansion, even some Concord members who felt guilty about what had happened 2,000 years ago. The war became bigger than humanity. It became a movement. On the front lines, Lieutenant Baiyun Bai fought in battle after battle. She saw death. She saw victory. She saw the faces of people being freed from slavery and the faces of Velori soldiers realizing their empire was ending. One night, she sat in her quarters and recorded a message home. "Came back for vengeance," she said to the camera. "That is what everyone says. And maybe that was true at first. Maybe that was what got us here. But somewhere along the way, something changed." She looked out her small window at the stars beyond. "I watched a child today, an alien child from some species I had never seen before. She was born in chains. Her parents were born in chains. Her grandparents were born in chains. She had never known anything except being owned." Yunbai smiled sadly. "When we freed her village, she did not understand what was happening. She just kept asking when the new masters would arrive. I told her there were no new masters. I told her she was free. She asked what free meant. Tears formed in her eyes. I think about that. I think about all the generations who lived and died in slavery because no one came to help them, because no one cared, because the galaxy decided they did not matter." She wiped her face. "We came back for vengeance. But somewhere along the way, I think we became something more. I think we became what the galaxy needed us to be." She ended the recording. Outside, the war continued. But now it was not just humanity's war, it was everyone's. The Velori homeworld fell on a quiet morning. There was no great final battle. No desperate last stand. By the time human forces reached the planet, there was almost nothing left to fight. The Velori fleets were gone. Their armies were scattered. Their people waited in silence for whatever came next. High Sovereign Threll was captured in his own throne room. He had refused to flee. He was 4,000 years old, and he had ruled an empire that once controlled a quarter of the known galaxy. Now he knelt in chains before creatures his ancestors had tried to enslave. President Munera had come personally. She was the first leader of the post-war Terran sovereignty, elected just months before the final campaign began. She was 51 years old, with kind eyes and a voice that could be gentle, or hard as stone depending on what the moment required. She stood before Threll and studied him for a long moment. "Do you know why we did not kill you?" she asked. Threll raised his head. His eyes were empty. "Because you want to humiliate me? You want to parade me before your people as a trophy? I understand. It is what I would have done." Munera shook her head. "No, we did not kill you because death is easy. Death is escape. You do not deserve escape. You deserve to live long enough to see everything you built be dismantled. You deserve to watch as every species you enslave builds new lives without you. You deserve to sit in a cell and know that you are the last High Sovereign, that your title dies with you. That history will remember you not as a conqueror, but as the reason the galaxy finally changed." She turned to leave, then paused. "You will have a trial, a real trial. with evidence and witnesses and judgment. Not because you deserve fairness, but because we are not you, we are better. The trial lasted 3 months. Representatives from every species the Valori had wronged were allowed to speak. The evidence filled libraries. When it was over, Threll was found guilty of crimes against civilization itself. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on a small moon where he would live out his remaining centuries with nothing but his memories. It was not revenge. It was justice. The galaxy noticed the difference. In the aftermath of the war, the question everyone asked was simple. What now? Humanity had won. They had destroyed the greatest empire in galactic history. They had freed billions of enslaved beings. They had proven themselves the most powerful civilization the galaxy had ever seen. They could have done anything. They could have taken everything. They chose a different path, President. Munera addressed the Galactic Concord in a session that was broadcast to every corner of known space. The chamber was filled with ambassadors from thousands of species. Many had fought alongside humanity. Many had opposed them. Many had simply watched from a distance, waiting to see what would happen. 2,000 years ago, Munera began. We were abandoned. We were a small, young species with no powerful friends and no great technology. When the Valori came for us, we begged for help. We asked this very council to protect us, and you refused. The chamber was silent. Several ambassadors looked away in shame. We could have died. We should have died. Instead, something strange happened. We were pulled out of the universe entirely. We spent 2,000 years alone in a pocket dimension, with nothing but our own hands and our own minds and our own determination. She paused. We could have become monsters. We had every reason to. We could have returned with nothing but hatred. We could have decided that a galaxy that abandoned us deserved to burn. And yes, we returned with anger. We make no apology for that anger. It was earned. Her voice softened. We also returned with memory. Memory of what it felt like to be powerless. Memory of what it means to be forgotten. Memory of begging for help and receiving none. She looked around the chamber. We refused to do to others what was done to us. She held up a document. This is a new charter. A new foundation for galactic civilization. It forbids the enslavement of any species, regardless of their age or development. It guarantees protection for the weak against the strong. It creates mechanisms for justice that do not depend on power. It is not perfect. No document is, but it is a beginning. She set the document down. We are not asking you to join us out of fear. We could force this upon you if we wished. But forced change does not last. Forced change breeds resentment and revolution. We are asking you to join us because it is right. Because you know, somewhere in whatever you have instead of a heart, that the old way was wrong. Because you watched billions suffer under Valori rule and did nothing, and part of you has never forgiven yourself for it. The chamber remained silent. We're offering you a chance to be better. Not because we demand it, because you want it. Because you are tired of living in a galaxy where the strong do whatever they wish and the weak simply endure. Humanity knows what it means to be weak. And we know what it means to become strong. We choose to use that strength to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Join us, or do not. But know that either way, the galaxy has changed. She sat down. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the ambassador from a small species called the Morani stood. They were a peaceful people, scholars and artists who had lived under Valori domination for 8 centuries. Their representative was old. Her scales faded with age. We have watched humanity since your return, she said. We expected conquerors. We expected new masters wearing different faces. Instead, we saw something we had never seen before. We saw power used for protection. We saw strength used for mercy. She bowed her head. The Morani will join this charter, and we will spend the rest of our existence grateful that we lived to see this day. Another ambassador stood, then another, then dozens. Within an hour, the majority of the galaxy had agreed to the new charter. The Galactic Union was born. There was one more thing to do. In a small medical facility on Earth, surrounded by machines that had kept her alive for centuries, Elder Yoon opened her eyes. She was the last living human born before the vanishing, Dr. Yoon Hana's granddaughter. Preserved in cryosleep and awakened for this moment, she was impossibly old. Her body was frail. Her voice was barely a whisper, but her mind was clear, and she had asked to speak. The ceremony was broadcast everywhere. Billions watched as this ancient woman, a living connection to humanity's lost past, addressed the new galaxy. "I remember the day we vanished," she said slowly. "I was 7 years old. I did not understand what was happening. I just knew that my grandmother had done something, and the stars had gone away, and everyone was scared." She smiled faintly. "I grew up in the darkness. I watched my people fight and die and eventually unite. I watched them build wonders I could not have imagined. I watched generations live and die preparing for this moment. Preparing to come home?" Her eyes grew wet. "My grandmother carried guilt her entire life. She believed she had doomed us. She died thinking she had trapped her people in a prison of her own making." The old woman shook her head. She was wrong. She did not trap us. She gave us time. Time to grow. Time to learn. Time to become what we needed to be. She looked at the camera, and threw it at every being in the galaxy. We could have died cursing the stars. Instead, we lived long enough to change them. She closed her eyes. 2 days later, she passed away peacefully. She was the last connection to the old world. With her death, that world was truly gone. But a new world had taken its place. On Earth. In a park that had once been a battlefield and was now a garden, Admiral Kong Tae-soo II stood before a memorial. His ancestor, the original Admiral Kong, was carved in stone. Looking up at the sky with determination in his eyes, Tae-soo placed his hand on the stone. It was cool beneath his fingers. "They told you it was hopeless," he said quietly. "They told you that spirit was not enough, that you could not win against an enemy so much stronger than you." He looked up at the sky. It was full of stars now, real stars. And among them, thousands of species looked to Earth not with dismissal or contempt, but with respect. "Now, spirit does win wars," he said. "It just takes 2,000 years." Behind him, children played in the grass. Human children and alien children together, running and laughing, unaware of the history they stood upon. To them, this was simply normal. A galaxy of friends and allies. A universe where being weak did not mean being worthless. That was the future humanity had built. Not with just weapons or technology, but with memory, determination, and a refusal to become the monsters they had once feared. The stars shone overhead, and for the first time in 2,000 years, they shone on a galaxy that was finally beginning to learn what humanity had always known. Every life matters. Every voice deserves to be heard. And every people, no matter how small or how young, deserves a chance. The war was over. But the real work had just begun, and humanity was ready.